One of the things that stories brings to us is that it feeds our imagination, both children and adults. If ever you watch children at play, very often they're accompanying their dolls or their toy soldiers or their tabletop games with voiced narratives. Now, it might not be narrative as you and I understand it, but for them it's not only bringing alive the characterisation, but it's also forging connections and understanding of cause and effect in the world. And in my novel, Stories We Tell Our Children, I have just one such boy who is doing exactly that, but because his parents haven't bought him any toys or games, he's forced to salvage things from litter bins in the house and reclaim other found objects with fairly comic consequences. But the thing about children's imaginations is you can't control them. You have no power over them at all, and sometimes they can go in strange and quite alarming directions. So just one sort of anecdotal example from the time my boys were at school is that in primary school they were given some instruction on healthy eating as part of a sort of government initiative. And you would hope that, you know, all the kids would take that away and it would set them up well for life, for an understanding of what makes for good and bad food intake. But there was one child whose imagination ran with it, and when he went back home he would sort of religiously seek out the sell-by dates on food and also the salt content, with often the result that he refused to eat what was on offer in his house and actually developed a borderline eating disorder. So again, in my novel, I do have an example of an eating disorder, but I haven't taken it from that sort of instruction in primary school. I've gone earlier back than that, you know, that time when children graduate from milk to sort of mushy vegetables and are sat in high chairs. And the parents in their despair are trying to do anything to get the child to open their mouth and eat the fairly unappetising gruel. So it can be, you know, open wide, the train wants to come into the station, open wide, the aeroplane wants to land on the runway, or, you know, the car wants to come into the garage. All these sort of little, you know, tricks that we parents try and use to get our kids to open their mouths. But again, it's in the case of my novel, the child in question runs with it in an alarming direction. Or if you want another example, if you consider that, you know, the humble fairy tale, most kids are asked to identify with a hero or heroine, and that way they come to a story of moral instruction, a cautionary tale, an aspirational tale. It's, you know, ideas of sort of, you know, justice, good v bad, all that sort of thing. But there is the chance, as I explore in the novel, of a child identifying or fixating at least on the big bad wolf, the wicked witch, the giant with the axe, and being scared witless, you know. Now, there is a question whether those children have an underlying anxiety and it would have come out anyway. But there, the story feeds their imagination in the worst possible way through no fault of the parents. You know, how could they know that would be the reaction of their child? You know, fairy tales have persisted, you know, throughout you know, mankind's history. So the thing about children's imagination, it's a force for good, but, you know, it does have some destructive seeds in as well.